well, I did procrastinate on this one. Who's placing their bets now that this ball gown is not going to be finished by the end of May? So having finished some of the outer inner layers of my ball gown, I now need to make the inner layer. This is the innermost layer, and it's called the chemise. It's the thing that is directly against my skin. So I was looking for patterns online for an 1860s chemise, and I found this one that I will link below. It was free. This is a blog post by Mimic of Modes, and basically they show an extant garment from around the 1860s, which was made out of one large rectangle and a couple of slits to mark out where the sleeves are, basically. And I thought, a single rectangle, there is no way I can screw this up. It seemed perfectly Rashali safe. For my materials, I picked up 2 meters of plain white cotton for £4 a meter, and that was a total of £8. And then I also got a slim green ribbon to act as my drawstring, and that was £1 for 3 meters. And that's it. That's the cost breakdown. So total of £9 for this chemise. This is just a scrap of the cotton that I have. Very small scrap of it. I do have more of this left. This is just, just so you can see kind of the drape of it before we start to work with it. And then the ribbon, which is also, it's a nice shade of green. I like it a lot. And without further ado, let's get to sewing. That might have been the quickest intro I've ever done. So the blog post didn't give a ton of info about the measurements, but they're pretty easy to figure out. So basically you need 3 measurements. You need the length of the garment, then the length of the sleeves, and finally underarm to underarm, basically across the chest. And that last one gets multiplied by 3 because it's going to be the neckline and it's going to be gathered up, so multiply by 3 for the gathers. I have drawn it out, so I'm gonna pop a picture on the screen and feel free to pause if you do want to follow along. It was a bit difficult to understand at first, but basically the slit opens up and then the sleeves kind of flip around like this, so that the side seam goes all the way from the hem of the chemise to the hem of the sleeve, and it runs like along the underarm. And then you chuck some gussets into the neckline and you're pretty much good to go. So I measured myself, I got all of those numbers in place on my diagram, and then I added the seam allowance here as well. So I did French seams for the side seams. So I added 1 inch to both sides for a 1/2 inch stitching line. And then I also added hem allowance on the top and bottom. Then all I had to do was tear that rectangle out of my fabric twice, front and back. And I also cut my gussets, which were just 2 3x3 squares that I then cut in half diagonally to get 4 triangles. I then folded my fabric in half and cut the slits. The vertical slit is just the length of the sleeve, and then the horizontal one went about 2 inches before the edge. In hindsight, I think I definitely should have left about 4 inches because there wasn't much room to work with when inserting the gussets. It turned out fine, but I could have saved myself some trouble here. I mean, the blog post even says to cut it about 4 inches before the end. I just didn't read it closely enough, so that's on me. I pinned up my side seams and I stitched at 1/2 inch, and then I did the same for the sleeve seams. I trimmed down the seams and turned the garment inside out, and then I stitched all 4 seams again for neat French seams. I double turned the hem and pressed it into place. Then I stitched the hem down. I did the same on the bottom of the sleeve. I then pinned the gussets in, lining up the point of the triangle with the corner where the sleeve meets the body. It takes a little practice getting these in. You kind of have to pivot across that point, but I got it in the end. And I backstitched these into place by hand. Then I felled the seam allowance down to the gusset. I double folded the neckline and stitched it down. This is going to act as a drawstring channel as well. And then I folded the garment in half to find the center front, and I made 2 marks for eyelets. I did the same thing with the bottom of the sleeves. I poked those 6 marks with an awl, making sure to only pierce the outer fabric of the drawstring channel. Then I stitched the eyelets by hand. I threaded my ribbon onto a tapestry needle and fed it through each channel. And the chemise was done. No! Oh no! Okay, I wanted to take off the hoop skirt because... Okay, that is far more reasonable. I might take off the corset cover too, just so you can see the chemise a little bit better. Well, there we are! Chemise done! Basically everything is done up to the crinoline, which is really, really good. So the pattern for this was really easy to understand, and it was really easy to put together as well. I think I did most of this in one day, and the only things that I needed to finish up the next day were the neckline, drawstring channel, and then the eyelets and actually putting the drawstring through. So it was pretty much a one-day make. Like it was really, really simple. And I do like the way it fits overall. It's just, the arms are a little bit weird and I can never figure this out. I've done this kind of neckline where it like includes the shoulder straps in the gathering and then it all gets gathered up at the front. I've done that kind of neckline a couple of times now, and every time I do it, the sleeves just turn out weird. They're a little bit too tight and a little bit, like, annoying. I don't know what that is. Maybe I just need to, like, adjust the gathering so that it's less in the sleeves and more in the front and back, but it's a bit of a faff, really. Like, it's just not very fun. It's fine. It's not, like, uncomfortable. I mean, it is a little bit, but, like, once I had the corset cover on and I've got, like, a lot going on over here and then the ball gown will be off the shoulder as well. There's just going to be a lot happening around my shoulders, so I'm not expecting it to matter really what this is doing. I can lift my arms okay, so that's the important bit. Do you know, I think part of the problem as well is that my material isn't as drapey as it maybe should be. I think a cotton lawn probably would have been better for this, or like a really thin linen or something. Like, it's not bad, but it's a little bit stiffer than I would like. And that's been the issue, I think, also with the 2 other tops that I've made with this kind of neckline. It just doesn't like gathering very much, so it doesn't want to gather up super, super tight. And so to get it to the width that I need for my neckline and to be off the shoulder like this and not like falling off of me, you do have to like squeeze it in really tight, and it doesn't want to gather that tight. And I think that's why it feels like it's a little bit uncomfortable. So that's annoying. It's not like the end of the world, but yeah, I wish I had been able to find a thinner cotton. This was kind of all I could find at the fabric shop when I went. So it is what it is. It's not a big deal. Oh, it also ended up being a little bit long. I think I flubbed my seam allowances a little bit. It was a surprise. Anytime I do math, I screw a little bit something up. It's just past my knee. I think I would have liked it to be just above the knee because it's a little bit easier for movement, but it really doesn't inhibit my movement so much because there's so much fabric that's gathered at the top and then just loose at the bottom. So there's plenty of room to move. I'll be able to dance in it just fine, which I am intending to dance in this ball gown. It will be very fun. I've already roped in a friend, bless him. Thank goodness he's agreed to be my dance partner for my big reveal of the ball gown, assuming I get to it, which is the other thing. Now that I've finished the chemise, I need to make the petticoat, which I have fabric for. I think I'm probably gonna self-draft that, so you can come along with me on that journey. That should be fun. And then it's the skirt and the bodice, both of which I still have not bought patterns for. I'm just like really worried about committing to a pattern and then what if I don't like it. I think the bodice, at least, I should be able to commit to the pattern. The skirt, I'm really leaning towards self-drafting, and I don't know why, because that's just gonna make my life more difficult, and I really should just buy a pattern. But I'm so worried about the amount of fabric that I have that I'm worried if I buy a pattern, it just isn't gonna fit, and then I'll have wasted money on this pattern. I think it probably will be okay, and I think I can kind of flub what I have with the pattern and then supplement with some of the black satin like I talked about in my outline stage. So it probably should be fine, and I probably should just buy a pattern because I've never made a skirt like this before. Oh, also, sorry, this wrap up is already way too long. I did kind of figure out how to make the crinoline a little bit smaller. The bottom ring actually collapses into itself, so if you collapse it enough, it just kind of tucks under the next biggest ring, and then that one becomes the biggest ring, basically. I can't show it to you because I will knock 5 things over in my flat, but that is a way to kind of shrink the crinoline, so I might do that just so that I don't have as much crinoline to cover with the skirt, and that way the skirt can be a little bit smaller. I would rather have the skirt be a little bit smaller and to be able to use my fabric to its best ability than to have like this crazy voluminous skirt that I can't get out the door in. The crazy voluminous skirt I'm sure I will do at some point, but for now I'm okay with just like a big skirt and not like a massive skirt. I think that's all I've got. So next up we will be working on the petticoat. So thank you for coming along with me on this chemise making adventure. I hope it was fun for you. It was fun for me, and I will see you next time. Bye! Not awkward at all, just posing in my Victorian underwear.